Marsha, you think I should get started now? Good. Thanks everyone for taking the time to attend today's BMRC annual meeting. We have a full agenda, so I won't speak for long, but I did want to take a moment to say how proud and happy I am that we've made so much progress in the last year. A year ago, we were pretty much a board managed organization due to some staff transitions. We didn't have any staff at all. And as a board, we were working hard to try to keep things moving and keep things all together as we ran searches. And the first successful search, we found a new executive director, Marsha Walker-McWilliams, who you met at last year's annual meeting in October. And Marsha had quite a bit of work to do, and I just want to take a moment to affirm her hard work since she started last year with getting the organization back in order again. I'd also like to acknowledge the role of the board in keeping things running during the time when we didn't have a staff, and with taking all of the necessary steps it took from volunteering for search committees and doing all of the incredibly hard work that it took to get us to the point today where we have 4 staff members, grant funded initiatives that are humming along. Marsha will talk about all of those in detail. But really, as your board chair, I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Steve Adams, the chair of the board, and a librarian at Northwestern. And again, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all of the hard work it took to get to this place. And we have a wonderful program today talking about COVID-19 and African-American collections. Again, Marsha will talk about the details, so I'll pass the mic to her now, but I want to thank you all for thinking it not robbery, as a mentor of mine always says, not robbery, to take a moment to attend this meeting and catch up on what's been going on with the BMRC. Thank you, and I'll pass it to Marsha now.
Great, thank you so much, Steve, for welcoming everyone to the 2020 annual meeting. I am Marsha Walker-McWilliams, Executive Director of the BMRC since September 2019. I also want to thank all of our panelists. We are so looking forward to hearing your insights in just a little bit. And thank you to everyone who's attending, whether it's your first time at a BMRC virtual annual meeting. It's mine too. I think we're all in that boat, that this is the first virtual annual meeting. But if you have been a friend, a colleague, or a part of the BMRC, welcome and thanks for coming to the annual meeting. I'd like to take a little bit of time before we get into our feature panel to just sort of share with you some of our past accomplishments over this past year, as well as some upcoming initiatives. So I'm going to share my screen here. Great. Thank you. Oops, sorry about that. Wonderful. Great. So the mission of the BMRC is to connect all who seek to document, share, understand, and preserve Black experiences. And it's the vision of the BMRC to be essential to promoting discovery, preservation, and use of Black historical collections. We primarily focus and spend a lot of attention on the Chicagoland Black experience, but we also do work in broader areas as well. Sorry about that, having just a bit of trouble here to make sure I'm doing this correctly. We are able to do this work as a consortium. So the BMRC is a consortium of libraries, museums, universities, communities, and arts-based organizations. And once I get my screen to work, I will be able to show you.
Marsha, I've had a similar problem before.
Yeah.
You have, I think it's the conflict between Zoom and PowerPoint. If you click, sort of have PowerPoint displayed, but then click on PowerPoint before you switch slides, it usually works well.
Okay. All right. Let me get this together. All right, so we will share this way. All right, can everyone see now? Wonderful. All right, sorry for that technical glitch. So all of the institutions that you see on the screen are the BMRC members for this past year, 2019 to 2020. And again, as a consortium, what links each of our member institutions is that they all have archives and collections that are freely accessible to the public, and that within those archives and collections, they have materials that are relevant to the Black experience. And again, lots of focus on Chicago, but a broader focus as well. Often people will inquire to the BMRC that they are interested in seeing a particular collection at the BMRC. And we always just want to reinforce the fact that the BMRC itself is not a collecting institution. Rather, we work in partnership with our members here on the screen to highlight and increase the discoverability and usability of the collections that they have within their archives. We are able to do this work through grants and supportive funding. Our host institution is the University of Chicago, and our staff offices are located in the main library, the Regenstein Library. However, like many of you, we are working remotely. So my dining room table has served as my office for the past several months. We are also supported by our member institutions. The BMRC as a consortium is a dues paying sort of membership structure. We also from time to time receive private donations, and there are several granting agencies who have supported our work over the past year. They include the Andrew Mellon Foundation, the Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation, and the Terra Foundation for American Art. I want to take a minute just to review some examples of past programs that we had over the year that really display the ways in which we work in partnership with institutions to highlight Black historical collections. In December of 2019, we partnered with the Chicago Public Library on the closing reception for the All Power to the People exhibit, which celebrated the legacy of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. This exhibition was on display at the Vivian G. Hart's Research Collection in the Woodson Regional Library. In February of 2020, we again partnered with the Chicago Public Library on its Black History Month theme, which was Afrofuturism. And I was able to participate in a great panel co-sponsored by the Black Roots Alliance on Afrofuturism and Black liberation, clearing the path to ensure Black people actually make it to the future. We also in January partnered with another one of our member institutions, Rebuild Foundation, on a program called Reading the Black Library that featured readings by historian Jonathan Scott Holloway and Avery R. Young, who is the poet laureate for the Stony Island Arts Bank. Reading the Black Library was a way of sort of reactivating the Johnson Publishing Library book collection, which is held at the Stony Island Arts Bank, and featured a really great conversation between the audience and the panelists, which I was able to moderate. And this program was also co-sponsored by Illinois Humanities. In February, we co-sponsored with the Oak Park Public Library, another one of our member institutions, to host our 2019 fellow, Sasha Fires Burgess. Sasha is an artist and photographer, and she presented her work, Untitled and Yet to Be Determined, a photographic exploration of race, class, and space in Austin. She shared with us a number of really wonderful and striking photographs that she took of Austin residents, and then led us into a really important discussion about sort of integration on the west side of Chicago, the differences between neighborhoods like Austin and Oak Park, that fostered a very rich discussion. Also in February, we partnered with a number of institutions on a author talk, Recovering the Lost South Side, featuring authors Lee Bay, whose book is on Southern Exposure, and Don Hayner, whose book was on Jesse Binga, Chicago's first Black banker. And this was an important discussion about thinking about sort of lost aspects of history on the South Side of Chicago. And we partnered with several organizations, Landmark Illinois, Chicago Public Library, and our friends at the Chicago Collections Consortium, who we regularly partner with on an annual basis on public lectures. And we look forward to continuing those partnerships. In addition to our public programs, we've also sort of stepped up our outreach and digital presence. In January, we unveiled the BMRC's new website. If you've not had a chance to take a look at it, we are regularly curating and updating features for the website, which has been great. We also started our monthly e-news bulletin, which goes out and includes important events by BMRC and our member institutions, the unveiling or opening of new collections, and other opportunities there. And you can sign up for that via our website as well. Just last month, we added a new resource, Protest in the Archives. We really wanted to be able to think thoughtfully about what work the BMRC does in light of the protests sparked by the sort of systematic oppression, racism, and police brutality as an outgrowth of the murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and many others. So we decided to focus on the important role that protest has played in American society and also within sort of the African-American history. The result of that was this Protest in the Archives resource. Essentially, it provides links to articles, videos, blog posts, and other important resources about how and why we archive protests. Why is it important to capture those moments? We also wanted to feature articles that discuss the ethics of doing so within this moment. So please, when you have a moment, take a look at Protests in the Archives. It is meant to be a living document, and so we invite everyone to send to us any articles, links, or relevant materials that we should be including in this resource page. We also are continuing with our flagship programs, the Summer Short-Term Fellows Program and the Archie Motley Program. Since 2009, we've held the fellowship program and have awarded fellowships to over 100 fellows. Obviously, COVID-19 is impacting the ability of fellows to do their work. Typically, they come to Chicago for 1 month during the summer, and that is just not feasible for everyone due to COVID-19. Many of our archival institutions are still closed, some are open, but we wanted to sort of recognize that. So the BMRC board decided to extend that fellowship period through the summer of 2021. So over the next year, we will see each of these fabulous individuals in the archives in Chicago. And as you can see, they're working on amazing and important topics, from a history of Providence Hospital to thinking about archives, history, memory, and civil rights, Black Girl Magic in comics, the history, memory, and politics of street gang truces, creating transformation on Chicago's West Side using photography and creative placement, school closing, public housing, law enforcement, and the future of Black life, as well as the Black Panther Party in Illinois and its impact on grassroots community organizations. If you would like to read the bios of our fellows and full project descriptions, those are available on our website. So we're very grateful to be able to continue this program. We are also continuing our Archie Motley internship program. The board decided to move forward, but only offering remote opportunities, again, sort of taking in the account, the effects of COVID-19. This summer, we are proud to have Jeru McCulley, who is an undergraduate student at DePaul University, And he will be working with the Chicago History Museum on a remote project describing digital images for the Rayburn Flerlage collection. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Ray Flerlage, he was a Black photographer from the South Side of Chicago who captured the 1960s blues and folk scenes in Chicago. So again, COVID-19 has definitely impacted the work that we are doing as a consortium, but we found ways to sort of address that and continue to offer opportunities for the discoverability of collections, the preservation, and the use of them. So we're excited. Finally, before we get to the panel, I just want to talk about my new colleagues who I am so excited. Last year, when I addressed the BMRC, I was a staff of 1, and now we are 4. I am so thrilled to welcome each of these wonderful human beings to the BMRC family and network. Allison Sutton joined in May 2020 as program manager. She will be overseeing our summer short-term fellow program, the Archie Motley internship program. She has completely resurrected our social media, and she will also be providing a lot of operational support for the BMRC's day-to-day activities. Through grant funding from the Mellon Foundation, we were able to also hire 2 additional staff members through 2021. Lori Lee Moses serves as our portal archivist, and she will be helping to basically leading the update of our search member collections to better highlight all of the wonderful collections that exist within our member institutions. And Tanya Calvin is our community engagement archivist. Tanya will be working on ways to provide legacy management resources and archival workshops for the broader Chicago community, as well as our member institutions. A brief look here at some upcoming initiatives and things that you can expect coming out of the BMRC in 2020. Again, each of our summer short-term fellows will be arriving over the course of the next year. And as a part of their fellowship requirement, they will be sharing the outcomes of their research via public programming. So please join our newsletter, stay tuned to what is happening so that you can be up to date on when these presentations will be taking place over the next year. Our community engagement archivist, Tanya Calvin, is working on a legacy management resource portal. This will provide rich resources for those who are stewarding or caring for their own archival collections, and it will also provide resources for donors, those who want to donate their collections to archival repositories. This will be an online digital resource, but it will also be accompanied by the moment, virtual workshops, and hopefully in 2021, in-person workshops. We'll also be doing some community engagement and collection diversification workshops for our member institutions. You will be seeing a redesigned collection portal that basically helps users and researchers to better find the important Black historical collections within our member institutions. We'll be resurrecting our biannual newsletter that will come out in January and July, featuring important news about our member institutions and the consortium's work. And we're also excited about a winter 2021 exhibition, the Black Metropolis Research Consortium, 15 Years of Documenting Black Life in Chicago. This will be a physical exhibition at the Special Collections Research Center in the University of Chicago Library. And it will be accompanied by a digital exhibition as well. And this is all to sort of honor and mark the 15-year anniversary of the BMRC in 2021. The board has also looked at ways that we can expand membership opportunities beyond our current member institutions, and we will be unveiling more of that in the coming year. And then in general, we hope to continue programming in collaboration with our members, partners, and community to increase knowledge and engagement with Chicago's Black collections, history, and culture. So that kind of concludes our annual report. And now for the moment I'm sure you all have been waiting for, we can get to our feature panel. We have heard a lot about the impact and the ongoing impact of COVID-19 on Black communities, on our country and the world writ large. But we also wanted to take a moment to think about the impact of COVID-19 on African-American collections and collecting institutions. And we're also acknowledging that, of course, in the midst of this global pandemic, we have also seen the rise of protest movements throughout the country. So we wanted to sort of check in with our member institutions, some of our partners and allies in this work, to really investigate how this is impacting their day-to-day work. So I'm very excited to welcome all of our panelists. You'll be hearing today from Raquel Flores-Clemens, who's the University Archivist at Chicago State University and Vice Chair of the BMRC Board. You'll be hearing from Charla Wilson, who is the Archivist for the Black Experience at Northwestern University. Dino Robinson, who is the founder of Shorefront Legacy Center and a member of the BMRC Board. Beth Locke, who is an archivist of the Vivian G. Harce Research Collection, located in the Woodson Regional Library of the Chicago Public Library. I always make sure I say that correctly. And she is also a member of the BMRC Board. And we are also thrilled to have Shanae Moraine, who is the Community Engagement Manager for Digital Public Library of America. So we will start with Raquel Flores-Clemens, who is University Archivist for Chicago State University and Vice Chair of the BMRC Board. After all of our panelists have gone, there will be an opportunity to pose questions. So attendees, please see the Q&A icon located near the bottom of your screen, and you'll be able to submit questions. After all the panelists have had a chance to speak, we'll be able to have a more free-flowing conversation. So I'll turn it over now to Raquel Flores-Clemens.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Can I get a thumbs up from folks? Okay. Welcome everyone. Thank you for being with us today. As Marsha stated, I'm Raquel Flores-Clemens. I'm a University Archivist and Director of Archives, Records Management, and Special Collections at Chicago State University. And today I'm going to talk to you all about how the institution has responded to COVID, and it's important to discuss that because that has informed how the archives has responded to COVID. For those of you who are not familiar with Chicago State University, we are a state public institution of higher learning on the city's South Side. We are a resident, and I like to say resident, because we are of and a part of the community. So we are a resident of the Burnside and Roseland communities. And as the demographic reflects in the community, the institution also reflects that demographic. We are a predominantly Black institution. Most of our student population identifies African American. And we also have a strong Latino, Latinx community as well. And that is the community that we serve, and that's also the narratives that are within the archives. So Chicago State University has a history of 152 years. So we've been around for a long time. Most of that time was in Inglewood, but we are slowly meeting the extending past that time over in Roseland and Burnside. It is a predominantly Black institution. It's not an HBCU. So there is a significant difference there because it transitioned from a predominantly white institution to a predominantly Black institution in the late 60s and in full swing in the 70s. So because of the student population that we serve, because of the community that we're in, as we know, COVID has disproportionately impacted the African-American community. And because we serve a large student body of African-Americans, as well as staff and faculty that also are a part of the community and are of the community, we have seen COVID impact us as well. And so, we have, there has been notifications of staff and faculty and students who have succumbed to COVID. And so it's more than just for our institution, it's not just data. It's important to state that because it humanizes the data. And it reflects how close in proximity that we are as an institution to the pandemic. So with that in mind, my position in the archive has been, one, first and foremost, the response has been both functionally and operationally. How do we, integrate, what's happening with COVID into how we not only care for our collections, but most importantly, keep our staff and our students safe when engaging with our collections, as well as how are we a resource for not only the university community, but the community at large. And so our first response was for those who engage with the collections, as well as the potential engagers of the collection. So in March, when the pandemic first hit, my immediate response as director of the unit was to cease having researchers in the archive, because at that time there was no clear indication of how COVID would, transpire, how it impacted communities, but also how it impacted materials. And so it was just best to cease that engagement with the materials and with the space. And the university also, that was also in line with the university's position, because soon thereafter, when the pandemic hit, it was the week before our spring break. So we kind of, it positioned us in a unique way where we could immediately respond, ceasing classes and such, because it was spring break already. And so the university followed suit soon thereafter and reduced access to campus for students and transitioned courses online. And also, because of our student population there, we serve many first generation students, students who are head of household, and our communities are, we have individuals from low income communities, that sort of thing. And so there was a need that arose in the university for technology for our students. So the university responded by providing technology to the students. And so it's important to mention these things and how the university responded, because our response as the archive was to document the university's response. And so what we have done is actively started collecting from jump, as the university shared out their plans and shared out the needs of the students, how they are meeting the needs. We too captured that. And also, my other response in terms of operationally was to see this as an opportunity to make sure that our materials at some point can be accessed sooner rather than later. And so the need arose to increase engagement for digital materials. And so because there are many things that still needed to be digitized, it allowed me to then plan and make an executive decision to push many program ideas and content development to be accessed and engaged with in fall. So immediately my plan was, let's push everything to fall, and then let's see what can we do to plan for our students to engage. And so, one, getting our digital materials in order to be engaged with in fall. We are our response for fall will be heavy on the program side, because again, the institution will, although operate hybridly, most of the engagement with between faculty, staff, and students will be online. And so currently, the archive is positioned in a unique way where we have the Gwendolyn Brooks Center for Creative Writing and Black Literature reports to the unit, and they are also responsible for the Black Writers Conference, which is scheduled to happen this year. And so we have immediately transitioned those planning, the planning to have the conference online. And so that will, and for those who are not familiar with the Black Writers Conference, it is a gathering, if you will, of Black creatives, from creative writing, poets, authors who engage and amplify the Black experience and those of underrepresented or under-resourced communities in their art and their work. And it's done in honor of the great Gwendolyn Brooks, which Chicago State had the great honor of having her as distinguished professor of English during the last decade of her life. And so we are continuing with that, and with the archives part in that programming, we will have a panel that engages one of our collections, specifically the Bennett collection. And so we are, details are coming, but we are certainly in the planning of that, and as well as drawing out footage from our archive, because when the Black Writers Conference, while we just restarted it in 2018, it was in full swing for almost 20 years prior to that, and from the early 90s through 2010. And so we have digitized a good portion of that collection. And so we plan to debut many of that footage during the conference. So another way of amplifying that particular narrative. Also, the library, the Gwendolyn Brooks Library at Chicago State, and the advisory committee are currently gathering resources to share out to the community, to the university community, particularly our students, as well as the larger community, around creative works that engage ideas of liberation, resistance, activism, to have support for our students who are, again, of the community. Not only is the community and our students are impacted by COVID, but also with the responses to the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and and all the names, Rekia Boyd, and those who are specific to Chicago, LaFon McDonald, and all of the names. And so we want to have resources available to students to engage with that. And so we are planning not only those resources, but those resources will support a workshop series in late, that will start in early fall, late August, called Right to Be Free. And again, that information is forthcoming. And so those resources will also include archival materials, so amplifying the narrative in the archive, as well as the resources available through the library at Chicago State. And the Right to Be Free series will also segue in and support what the theme will be for the Black Writers Conference, which is A Time for Loving. And so, so those are some of the responses that we have as not only an institution, but also with the library. And the archive is playing its position in documenting those responses, and making sure that we are providing resources to the community. We also, as the archive, are still providing services remotely. So we are, fulfilling research requests as best as we can. It's more of a concerted effort, because we do have most of our collections in an automatic retrieval system. So, when no one's in the building, it is closed. And so, we need to access collections. It's a concerted effort between different departments, because there's a different department that manages that system. But we are fulfilling research requests. We've been able to fulfill many research requests because we do have materials that have been digitized, but of course it has amplified the need for digitization. And we are, as best as we can, engaging, online through social media, although we are also, I'm currently revamping our social media presence because of all the things that are happening in our community, embracing the fact that we are a Black institution. We have a large student population of students of color. Many of us identify as people of color. And so we just have to deal and engage with the emotions of everything that's going on as well. And so, so my position is that has been to kind of reduce the engagement with social media, and then to make sure that when institutions are not trying to, and I hate to say it, kind of capitalize on Black pain, because you saw a lot of institutions putting out statements right after a lot of these events. I want to make sure that as the archive, we engage with those things later, so those conversations are still happening and still being amplified instead of being forgotten. And so we are getting ready to launch some things starting at the end of the month to amplify those narratives, to continue to bring light to the current events around police brutality and surveillance. And then lastly, developing, figuring out a way how to ethically collect and narratives of those impacted in the institution around COVID, but doing it ethically, doing it in a way that's not inflicting harm, because as some of you may know, collecting data on COVID also has implications around surveillance. And so I'm currently thinking through how can we qualify, have qualitative narrative to support the quantitative data for our institution, to humanize how COVID is impacting the institution, to humanize what's happening in the community and how it's impacting our student body, but doing it in a way that's not inflicting harm. And so those have been our responses from University Archives at CSU. Can't hear you.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information with us, Raquel. And again, attendees, if you do have questions, we'll be able to take those following each of the panelists. Next up, we'll welcome Charla Wilson, who's the archivist for the Black Experience at Northwestern University.
Great, thank you. I'll share my screen. I do have notes. I'm curious, can you all see it?
We cannot see your notes.
No? Okay. All right, well, good afternoon. As Marcia said, my name is Charla Wilson, and I'm the archivist for the Black Experience at Northwestern University. And that means that my work is dedicated to preserving records that tell the history of Northwestern's Black students, faculty, staff, and alumni. I also work with researchers to provide them with access to our collections and educate the public about our institution's history. So I've been thinking a lot about this work and the origins of this position in light of current events, and particularly Black Lives Matter. For those who are not familiar with the position, in 2016, this position was created in partnership with Northwestern and its Black alumni. So Black alumni and students alike advocated for the preservation of their history and to have access to it, but also to have a collection that serves as a physical reminder of the institution's past and to hold us accountable to knowing it, especially as a predominantly white institution. So likewise, I think on a national level, this call to amplify voices of historically overlooked people and seeing people's desire to learn more about this is really interesting, and for me as an archivist, exciting that I have this opportunity to work with researchers to provide them with information through primary sources that can educate us and at times challenge and complicate our understanding of the past. So that's something we strive to support at Northwestern, and I think our collections do just that. So I work in university archives, and while our focus is Northwestern based, mostly about student life and also in our collecting of official university records, a large percentage of our collections have a broader scope, many of them reflecting the lives, careers, and research of our faculty and alumni, which supports an abundance of research interests for those who are using our collections. So I'll just really quickly highlight a few of our African-American collections, and then I'll talk about the impact of COVID on this work. So one of our most utilized collections is the Melville Herskovits papers. Herskovits was a 20th century anthropologist known for establishing the first African studies program in the United States at Northwestern University. We also have the Catherine Flowers papers, which document the work of this Northwestern alumna, dancer, choreographer, and Chicago public schools teacher. In the 1940s, she established the Flowers School of Dance in Chicago. And she too actually studied under Herskovits to research the history of African-American dance in the 19th century. We also have the Dennis Brutus papers, which document his life and career as a South African activist who advocated to end apartheid in South African sports. And his collection documents this activism as well as his poetry and teaching career at Northwestern. One of our more recent collections is the Angela Jackson papers. Jackson is a Northwestern alumna and a Chicago-based poet, novelist, and playwright. and many of her writings reflect the era of the Black arts movement of the 1960s and 70s. And finally, another more recent collection is the Daphne Maxwell Reid papers. She was a Northwestern alumna, model, fashion designer, and actress, and she is known as Northwestern's first Black homecoming queen in 1967, and also known for her activism in a significant student protest in 1968. I'll also mention that Northwestern Libraries has other units with unique collecting focuses, but also have strengths in African American collections as well, which is our special collections, music and transportation libraries, and the Herskovitz Library of African Studies. So regarding the impact of the pandemic on our work, the library has been physically closed to the public since mid-March. And you might imagine that this has impacted our ability to take in physical collections. So at this time, I've been using this opportunity to initiate conversations with potential donors about their papers and oral histories, which is something I kind of resisted originally, did not want to be intrusive at this stressful time, but it actually turned out that many people have been receptive to that contact, as many are at home and have more free time. So this is really a valuable time to start those conversations. Another impact of this pandemic and even campus closures has been on conducting oral history interviews. So I've been working with our campus's gospel choir. Next spring, they plan to organize a 50th anniversary celebration of the organization next spring. And this summer, my plan was to invite the founders to campus to record their oral history interviews, but with travel restrictions, it's of course currently not safe to do that. So it's interesting kind of having this dilemma with this also being a time-sensitive project. While it's not ideal, I'm looking at some ways to identify best practices around recording remotely. So this is going to be sort of an interesting venture doing that. But while the pandemic has created some difficult situations around collecting, I think it is also allowing us to think a little more creatively too. So for example, with the anniversary, some of our colleagues are turning to more born digital collecting. So with the anniversary, something that I've been working on was creating a Google form that I could share with the alumni of this gospel choir for them to submit written audio or video recordings where they could sort of provide us with recollections of their time in the choir, which I think in terms of timing, I think this is kind of a unique moment to do this kind of work since more people seem to be receptive to this, as so much of what we're doing is digital and online. So that's kind of been a benefit in some ways. Outside of acquisitions, a lot of our work has pivoted to providing researchers with remote access to our collections, and we're definitely seeing the value of having digitized content these days. Fortunately, we are able to support researchers with some limited access. For example, we have our library's collections website, and this is a snapshot of just a portion of that site where we have some digitized documents that we could offer researchers. And we also have some other things like digitized newspapers. And also we're referring to researchers to our online exhibits and social media accounts where we have an abundance of primary source documents for them to access. And I'm really glad we're able to do this, especially at this time. We've had some researchers contact us with interest in learning about the impact, for example, of influenza of 1918 at Northwestern, and they're trying to find ways to contextualize our current moment with things that happened in the past, or even there's been interest in terms of campus's history regarding policing and how we have dealt with racism on campus in the past. So we are continuing to try ways to provide as much as we can remotely. We also had a really exciting challenge this spring quarter to help a faculty member who taught a course on the history of Northwestern and city of Evanston, which is a perfect connection for us. So a colleague of mine and we worked with the professor to create a guide, and this is just a snapshot of what that guide looks like to provide the class with some digital sources. So kind of interesting here too, and sort of thinking creatively, something that we did was we created this internal database with some archival sources we've accumulated over time from like past reference requests and personal research, and we're able to provide some additional, some more access to some of the documents we had scanned copies of to the class. And we're also able to work with the class to provide them with instruction in a virtual setting, and I was able to return as a guest speaker to talk about Northwestern's Black history. And I think this collaboration really opened the door for us to work with faculty and students in a new way. Something else that was really fruitful in this collaboration was that we were able to embed a few archives projects into the course. So simultaneously, my colleagues and I put out a call for volunteers among Northwestern students, faculty, and staff to document how their lives have been impacted by the pandemic, as many other institutions are doing. So we created a form for that, as you can see here. And so the faculty member was interested in providing this as an optional final project for her students, with the hope that they would be interested in submitting the journals to the archives. And we were also able to recommend an additional project to her students to select some primary sources from our collections, to analyze it, and then create social media posts that we could publish on our archives Instagram account. And that's just a snapshot of our account right there. So in summary, I think we've had sort of like a set of challenges transitioning to remote work, but also I think this has presented some new and exciting opportunities for us as well to support researchers in a different way.
Okay, thank you so much, Charla. Next up, we will have Dino Robinson, who is the founder of Shorefront Legacy.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me part of this panel. It's a privilege to be amongst some great archivists and researchers. Shorefront, I am the executive director and founder of Shorefront, which is located in Evanston, Illinois. We service 7 suburban communities, Evanston north to Lake Forest. And our specific target market that we work with is the African-American communities, specific to Evanston, Glencoe, and Lake Forest, both which have a African-American presence more than 100 years. And we started to create an archive from the ground up. We're located in Sherman United Methodist Church, which is a historic African-American church in Evanston. And we're glad and fortunate to be a host of their space. I'm going to share the screen to kind of showcase some of the things that we're doing amongst this shutdown. We were fortunate last year to have with us a partnership with the Smithsonian, the National Museum of History and Culture, African-American History and Culture, where they provided their community creation project, where we're able to digitize some of our items in our collections that we've had sitting and becoming outmoded. So we took that opportunity to have several of, or not a handful, but quite a few files, I think about 50 in total, digitized, to have our audio history digitized and make available for the public to use. It kind of came in good timing where the shutdown happened, where we're really in full tilt in trying to get the site up and moving. And so we developed a site called Shorefront Voice, which we're able to not only take the newly digitized files, for example, Kay Davis, and this is a photograph of her I took when she visited her family home here in Chicago, as I was returning some documentation that was found in a residential basement that was literally addressed to her name. So I took that opportunity to return those items to her, and in turn, she turned some of those items back over to the Shorefront archives. We're also able to include the actual audio interview that we performed, as well as the transcript that accompanies that you can follow along with the transcript, with the audio. We also included the metadata that goes along with it to give some background and some common terms and use management. What we showcase on this site are all the oral histories that we have releases for. And this proved to be an exciting venue to provide for the community, especially with shutdown, and when schools were reaching out to us for information about localized history that students can use in their reporting. So we're able to immediately direct them to this website once we did that. We also just put a bigger emphasis on our publications that we have been working on, more specifically a series called Dream Dancers. We're working with Spencer Jourdain, who's the author of the series. And Spencer Jourdain is the youngest son of Edwin B. Jourdain Jr., who was Evanston's first African-American alderman who was elected in 1930. So over the course of 15 years, I've been individually working with Spencer Jourdain to help him go through his family files and archives and put together his family legacy dating as far back as 1620 to 1960. So that was kind of an exciting long haul. And now that all the publications are finished, we're now looking at some virtual meetings and presentations for him to introduce his work to the general public. We also, with the advent of COVID, we started working with a bigger outreach with our home city, Evanston, in regards to current events and initiatives that have been a long time been taking place in the United States. Evanston is the first municipality to adopt a reparations policy that has financial money attached to it for direct payout to the Black community. And in various town hall meetings that we've had with the city of Evanston and with residents, we were able to develop and work up a working document, which is now about 45 pages long, to make that case for reparations in Evanston, providing the evidence needed to help support the cause of reparations in Evanston. So with the city of Evanston, Shorefront has been able to become a valuable asset to this effort that led to the groundbreaking work that the alderman worked on, as well as providing additional resources where needed to build on those evidence that are needed. For example, this Hope map that showed the redlining in Evanston and how it impacted the historic Black community located as represented in D2. And additional information with the history of Jim Crow in Evanston and how it wasn't necessarily a written policy, but it was an adopted policy enforced by just the general attitudes of white supremacy. So that was, this is still an ongoing program that the city of Evanston will embark in and will probably be pretty heavy for the next 10 years. But it proved to be a fruitful engagement with the city of Evanston, as now that no matter what the city of Evanston is doing toward reparation, they're always incorporating the name of Shorefront and the Shorefront's activities and how this work came to be. At that same time, we started a process where we're honoring cultural sites in city of Evanston. With the aspect of not wanting to present a new or encourage a new historic or preservation district that has multiple restrictions, we wanted a program that the community is involved in and engaged in and sets the terms and the criteria for recognition. The end result ended up in a resolution, 54R20, that has designated Shorefront as the organization that will oversee the process in designating all of these sites with markers, wayfinding maps for self-guided tours, brochures, and a website presence. This is a work in progress right now, as this was put into or adopted this last month in June. Lastly, with COVID, we are working on a series, and like what Charla had mentioned and Raquel had mentioned, just connecting with the Evanston community. We're doing a lot more oral histories where we are doing some virtual interviews using Zoom, as this is shown. We recently interviewed the group of 20-year-olds that organized the Rally for Black Lives, which then changed into the Defund the Police initiative. Over a course of 2 days, they organized and hosted a rally march from the YWCA in Evanston to Evanston Township High School, which had a participationship of over 5,000 people that attended that. So we were able to acquire their organizing notes, some of the signage that was used, and we recorded the oral history, and we also documented what was happening on during the event. We also interviewed Spencer Jourdain, as mentioned in his books, about his family legacy. We also interviewed Marcy Rogers, who is the costume designer and stylist for Spike Lee's movie, The Black Klansman, as well as the Netflix series, She's Gotta Have It, and some of her upcoming work that she's doing now. And then the government side, we started interviewing members of School District 65 as it relates to the disparities between Black and white students in performance. So the way this COVID impacted Shorefront is to more retool how we engage with the community from a distance. Just like Charlotte said, we're engaging families with documenting their family history and creating archives and donating them to Shorefront, engaging with more oral history interviews, and providing more and more resources for public use, utilizing various websites. So we are continuing that, and I think and Shorefront is a completely volunteer organization, so we are beholden to that. And so the COVID as a organization has not necessarily affected us. We just had to retool and reapproach how we engage with the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dino. Next up, we'll have Beth Locke, who's an archivist at the Vivian G. Harsh Research Collection, located in Woodson Regional Library of Chicago Public Library.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Beth Locke, and I've been an archivist here at the Harsh Research Collection for 6 years. I'm also a BMRC board member and a board member at the Chicago Men's History Center. I was first introduced to the Harsh Research Collection in 2011 as a graduate student intern working for the BMRC during their color curtain processing project. The BMRC placed me at Harsh to process collections, and I've been here ever since. Today, I'll be discussing how the Harsh Research Collection has been impacted by COVID-19. I'll start with a summary of the archive's history, holdings, and the patrons we serve, and then I'll talk about the negative effects of the pandemic on the archive before moving on to the positive effects Harsh staff has noted these past few months. It's always good to end on a positive note. In January 1932, George Cleveland Hall branch of Chicago Public Library opened at 48th and Michigan Avenue in Chicago's Bronzeville neighborhood, with Miss Vivian G. Harsh as CPL's first African-American branch manager. Over time, Ms. Harsh collected rare books, pamphlets, and materials that documented the African-American experience. Funding for the Special Negro Collection, as it came to be called, came from grants, patron donations. Harsh also used her own money to purchase books for the collection. In the photo that you're looking at now, you can view the Special Negro Collection as it's located on the shelves directly behind Vivian Harsh's desk. In the 1930s, the collection's reputation spread, and the library became a meeting place for promising young Black writers, artists, and activists, such as Richard Wright, Zora Neale Hurston, Gwendolyn Brooks, Alan Locke, Horace Cayton, St. Clair Drake. The list really goes on. These individuals also donated works to add to the collection, and it grew. Vivian Harsh passed away in August 1960. In 1970, her Special Negro Collection was renamed in her honor, and it was moved 5 years later to the new Carter G. Woodson Regional Library. So here's a screenshot from our webpage, the Harsh Research Collection. And this collection has grown into the largest manuscript collection of African American history in the Midwest, containing over 70,000 books, many of them rare, 500 periodical titles, both current and retrospective, and 75 microfilm research collections, totaling over 7,000 reels. The most unique materials at the Harsh Research Collection are its nearly 340 archival collections documenting African American individuals and organizations. The Harsh Research Collection serves a wide array of researchers from all different backgrounds. We'll see local visitors from our Washington Heights neighborhood, foreign researchers from abroad. In 2019, we had visitors from Ireland, France, Germany. They really do come from all corners. We'll assist middle school kids with their Chicago Metro History Fair projects, and also seasoned researchers who are working on their next book project. The Chicago Public Library really does grant archival access to everyone. Which brings me to the negative effects of the pandemic on the Harsh Research Collection. The most immediate and the biggest effect that we've seen has been limited access to the archive, both for patrons and for staff. Chicago Public Library closed all of their locations on Saturday, March 21st, due to Governor Pritzker's stay-at-home order, which began that same day. Staff worked from home, and only the building engineers had access to the archives to ensure their physical safety. Library staff returned on site 2 months later, while patrons were welcome back in early June. However, the archives were still closed and have finally just reopened this past Monday by appointment only, which is why I put up this lovely meme here of Christopher Walken. Before the pandemic, Harsh Research Collection had drop-in hours for our manuscript reading room, which was open 5 days a week. Anyone could stop in and view the materials. Needing to make an appointment can be an added deterrent for some of our researchers. And of course, now people are worried about in-person visits due to their health. They can be afraid to come into the library, but having these appointments to visit the archive helps staff maintain social distancing. But it cannot eliminate the risk of getting sick in its totality. Staff does its best to answer research inquiries by phone and email, and there's definitely been a great increase in photocopy and digital scan orders as well. So an important part of an archivist's job is to bring in new collections into the repository. This can include working off-site to meet with potential donors and survey their collections. This can take place in a donor's home. Since the library closed in March, staff has not been taking in any new collections. Visiting people in their homes is currently too risky for staff and for our donors. This is difficult because it seems like everybody has been cleaning out their home the last few months. Spring cleaning 2020 is on a whole nother level, and people are antsy to get those boxes out of their houses. Harsh staff has gotten multiple calls for people eager to donate their family's papers, and we're just asking them to be patient for a little while longer until we can resume the collection pickups. In order to maintain social distancing, the library has canceled all in-person programs for the foreseeable future. Meeting rooms and auditoriums cannot be booked. Harsh staff has temporarily canceled the regular meetings of the Patricia Lidell researchers and the Harsh Readers Circle. Both groups met monthly in our library and they were open to the public. The Patricia Lidell researchers is a genealogy group specializing in researching Black family history. And the Harsh Readers Circle is a book club devoted to reading and discussing African American literature. We're working to host these groups via Zoom, but we do realize that some members are not computer literate, or they might not have access to online Wi-Fi or have any access at all to those materials. So we're working on alternatives where we can reach some of those people. And the spring and summer months are usually when the Harsh Research Collection hosts the greatest number of our volunteers and our student interns. Students take advantage of the summer break to gain practical knowledge in the archival field. Due to the pandemic, Harsh is not hosting volunteers nor interns. This is especially disappointing for Harsh archivists because we genuinely do enjoy our time spent with these people. Mentoring new archivists is incredibly important to the archival field. Introducing volunteers to archives at a younger age allows them to consider it as a career choice. The past few years, our archive has hosted teams from the After School Matters program. This summer, we're not hosting because we don't want to put anyone at greater risk. Oh, this is what our appointment form looks like if you want to fill it out online. And when you fill this out, we'll get back to you, but this is how you can come in to look at archival collections, reference books, microfilm, and even if you want to view one of our exhibits. All right, so let's move on to the positive effects. As you can see from this meme, every cloud does have a silver lining, even if you have to struggle to see it. Chicago Public Library archivists and librarians are focusing on digitization for our archival collections. While we can't digitize all of our collections due to copyright restrictions, there are several collections on the library's webpage, including we have the Phillips David Sane collection, which contains unpublished and published works and ephemera, united by its focus on the struggle of Africans and African Americans through the Middle Passage, all the way up to the Civil Rights Movement. There's also the Chicago Renaissance digital collection, focusing on African American community leaders, performers, artists, writers, and activists on Chicago's South Side from the 1930s through the 1950s. 2 new collections from the Harsh Research Collection will be added later this year or early next year. That includes World War II letters and speeches from the Samuel D. Black Jr. papers and the Illinois Writers Project, Negro in Illinois papers. Those have also been digitized. The Illinois Writers Project study of the African American experience in Illinois from 1779 to 1942 consists of draft chapters, research notes, newspaper extracts, oral history transcripts, and draft essays. All of this work was destined for the Negro in Illinois, an unfinished book on which more than 100 researchers from the Illinois office of the Federal Writers Project collaborated. During this time, we are also processing more collections. We just have more time available. So our senior archivist, Beverly Cook, is working on the Arabelle Thompson papers, the Gwinnett Tilly Turner papers. We just have more time to sit down and actually get this work done. And we're doing additional exhibit planning. As Marcia mentioned, we hosted All Power to the People, an exhibit celebrating the legacy of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. And that was on display in the Harsh Research Gallery from February 2019 to March of this year. It was extended because we had more people that wanted to come in and view it that were members of the Illinois chapter, and also a few more school groups that wanted to come in and see the exhibit before it was taken down. Now we're moving to renovate the main gallery space for our next exhibit on the artists and writers of the Chicago Black Renaissance. This exhibit will open when the public library reopens to the public. Currently, patrons may make an appointment to view the exhibit Continuing the Legacy, celebrating 60 years of debutante cotillions in the smaller Harsh Gallery. The Links, Inc. is the National Women's Service Organization based on the ideals of combining friendship and community service. Founded in 1950, the Chicago chapter places a special emphasis on volunteer service in the fields of youth services, international trends and health services, and promoting African American art. We're also spending a lot more time creating programs that we can add to the Chicago Public Library's YouTube channel. So those are actually filmed here in Harsh, doing show and tells of collections, oral histories. And then we want to have more interactive programs that are hosted on services such as Zoom. And finally, we have more time for professional education. That's very important in this field. And while I was working from home, I did a number of workshops and meetings and things on conservation of archival materials, advocating for the archive. And it also gives you a better chance to do networking with other organizations in Chicago so that you're better planned and you can be more proactive when the library does reopen and we can have visitors again. But also, all of the archivists in Chicago are dealing with some of the same issues in relation to how we won't let COVID-19 hold us back. So, oh, and this is our digital collections page at Chicago Public Library if you want to check it out. All right, so this is my contact information. Please feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email if you have any questions, especially when it comes to visiting the Harsh Research Collection, as we're open by appointment only. All right, thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Beth. And we will now turn to Shanae Moraine, who's the Community Engagement Manager at Digital Public Library of America.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you to Dr. Walker-Williams for inviting me to join today's panel and to continue DPLA and BMRC's relationship as conversation partners that began during our February retreat in Chicago pre-COVID. I'm Shanae Moraine, and in my role as community manager, I develop services, partnerships, and products to support DPLA's national network. The Digital Public Library of America collects and makes freely available materials from thousands of cultural heritage organizations across the United States. I was on a call with fellow archivist Aisha Hakel, who manages collections at Avery Institute of African American History and Culture, talking about today's panel in DPLA. And she said, the first step is admitting the problem. So I'm taking that adage and running with it to consider how DPLA works with African American collections through the lens of recovery, and how our national network can serve as a platform for repair and building reciprocal relationships. I'm going to drop some links to DPLA resources in the chat as I talk. In 2019, DPLA launched a new strategy with an emphasis on uplifting stories from and working with institutions and projects and communities that have traditionally been excluded from projects like ours. Recognizing the legacies of racism and white supremacy in member institutions and how that resulted in the failure to develop collections that are truly representative of the public we serve, the DPLA Network Council began drafting a document to guide the creation of more inclusive and diverse collections as part of their 2019 priorities. The IDEAS statement, which stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, Access, and Social Justice, unifies the membership around a very clear expression of intent to actively work on closing this content deficit and identify how a national digital library can and should respond. And I'll share a draft of the idea statement so you all can see that it will be approved by the National Network Council at the end of this month. This DEI work was in motion before COVID-19, and this summer's Black Lives Matter protests align with the timing and the completion of our external announcements about the work. And this really required us to be intentional about what those messages committed us to and how we plan to walk the talk of those. As far as representation goes, currently with African American collections in DPLA, I can point to our primary source sets for a good sense of curated content within DPLA, representing the full corpus of Black collections. These sets were created and reviewed by teachers on DPLA's Education Advisory Committee and were designed to help students develop critical thinking skills by exploring topics in history, literature, and culture through the letters, photographs, posters, oral histories, etc., from libraries, archives, and museums across the country. Some of the African American focus sets are Exodusters, African American Migration to the Great Plains, Fannie Lou Hamer, A Raisin in the Sun, and Ida B. Wells and Anti-Lynching Activism. DPLA staff developed a curation and connection-focused strategy to guide our work in the first 90 days of the pandemic and make it easier for anyone to access and use these primary source sets and the 37 million artifacts in the library to create their own educational storytelling and genealogical projects. So we focused on access. In April, as the pandemic's disproportionate impact on African Americans were revealed, we began to sketch out a concept that leveraged DPLA as a central repository for sharing and contextualizing historical and relevant information and personal accounts related to this moment. We wanted to be a resource and support the work that is already in progress rather than create more work for librarians and archivists. And we're thinking about text tools that could make personal archiving easier and subgrants for collecting institutions to curate and later harvest on a dedicated DPLA site. The project is also an opportunity to lean into actionable work connected to our idea statement. Feedback from these early conversations with potential partners was really poignant and challenged what DPLA could offer within the scope of a PhD candidate interviewing Black healthcare professionals and community leaders about the pandemic's impact in Milwaukee shared the need for continued financial support to increase the number of oral histories she can collect. Our partners within the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library System asked about providing honorariums for artists involved in their Essential Workers Photography Project and gift cards for Amazon grocery delivery for storytellers since the county can't purchase them directly. So this caused us to really realize who needs funds for technical support when the folks who are featured in the COVID-19 collections are hungry and our partners are asking for direct financial support. We also heard partners say that they didn't have the pre-COVID-19 relationships and networks in place to collect the experiences of Black, Latinx, nor Indigenous peoples. In response, we are centering the needs of communities and potential partners on the design details and the execution of whatever this project is. We're developing internal opportunities to talk about best practices for community archiving and the psychology of sharing later versus sharing now, to talk about DPLA as a destination for collections and a resource for referrals and connections. We're also intentionally spotlighting the stories of African-American women in voting and how Black women's history of activism laid the groundwork for some of the activism we're seeing make an impact today. The Black Women's Suffrage Digital Collection will launch later this summer. It's a new dedicated website featuring original contextual content powered by funding from Pivotal Ventures, an investment incubation company created by Melinda Gates. The project will provide digital access to materials documenting the roles and experiences of Black women in the women's suffrage movement, and more broadly of women's rights, voting rights, and civic activism between 1850 and 1960. Yesterday, we announced a set of partnerships with the Atlanta University Center, Robert W. Woodruff Library, the Avery Research Center for Afro-American History and Culture in Charleston, Tuskegee University, and the Amistad Research Center at Tulane University, along with the Southern California Library to support new digitization and metadata remediation as a part of the new collaborative collection. We're really excited about the Black Women's Suffrage Project and proud to do programming with our community about African American collections during this time. You can hear directly from our partners about their work at the webinar that we're hosting tomorrow about how digital artifacts can help reconstruct the visibility of Black women's activism. Supporting the care and the stewardship of African American collections during this time of financial uncertainty for DPLA looks like supporting African American archives. It is us extending the timeline of digitization project completion to accommodate our partners' personal bandwidth and their capacity to work on site. It's prioritizing their expertise as subject specialists by inviting them to share insight into their curatorial choices for our collection and putting them in dialogue with scholars and practitioners who are teaching with their material so we can all learn a bit more about outreach and the end user. It also looks like really taking in what our partner in Florida at the Sunshine State Digital Network said, that we'll be asking people about their COVID experiences for years to come, and that we can afford to be graceful and attuned to the time and what people's capacities are, because we'll be collecting and sharing this for years to come. We'll be talking about what we experienced during COVID-19 and how Black folks asserted that our lives mattered. And I personally am really proud to work at an organization that is prioritizing Black collections and that could also share the roadmap and the timestamps that mark DPLA's action during this new period of American history. and thinking through what Raquel said about, all the statements that are coming out, being able to say that this is work that we prioritize without being encouraged, because it was, already in our minds. And it's just great that there's so much synergy between DPLA's work and American history right now. So thank you for the invitation, and thank you all for listening.
Great. Thank you so much to each of our panelists. You have shared some wonderfully important information. You brought up, I think, a lot of things that maybe we all weren't thinking about, just from your own sort of institutional vantage points. So thank you so much. We have gotten a few questions here in the Q&A. So we'll go ahead and get to some of those.
Sure. This is Allison, and I'm the program manager and archivist. So let's look at some of the questions we have here, starting from the early period. Okay, so I'm curious whether institutions have pivoted to more deeply supporting the creation of digital resources and digitization efforts. Some of you did speak to that. And that's not addressed to anyone in particular. So I know Dino said that you're always focused in on digital projects.
Yeah, I can answer a little bit of that. I think the big impediment about focusing on digital archives is resources, financial resources, and how to create the content. And third, as was mentioned before from the Vivian Hirsch, dealing with copyright issues. And so we were always pragmatic about what we do, and we tried to look at what we have immediate control of. So our focus with oral histories are what we have immediate control. The bulk of them I performed myself, and each of the people who I interviewed, we have releases for. And if I didn't have releases for, I could still go back to family descendants that are still living today to rectify that situation. And this proved to be fruitful, where not only are we able to release it, but also acquire new content into the collections. In addition to, we're able to maintain, still host a summer intern that came from Champaign-Urbana. To since we're not working, at a site, we augmented her program to actually produce an oral history interview, and that's the one she did of Marcy Rogers, the fashion stylist for Spike Lee, and also looking into doing a virtual gallery of some of her work that will be done later on, and then hopefully we're arranging a interview session with her former high school here in Evanston Township High School. So we are focused on that because I think right now it's probably the easiest thing to do now, and make those, not only perform those or produce those, but also make them available to the public as soon as possible.
Great. Along with that question, there is one about whether or not there's been more of a demand for digital resources, maybe at DPLA, they're asking specifically. And have you been able to assist your members in the digitization process? If so, how?
Very much so. There's been a lot of demand for digital content. As DPLA has this huge corpus of 37 million objects, what we have done during this time is make that library more discoverable, and we've shared with our partners and with our general audience our platform, including like links for logos and already described areas of research within the collection that they can point to, so that they can put this on their library website or their public school website. We've also increased access to our free ebooks through our free ebooks.dpla site. And we have been thinking about doing further curation that's based around the coming need for content related to Common Core and some state standards. So we're with our partners about building curriculum and also creating COVID-specific content that makes linkages between historic disparity, like redlining, the experience where we've been looking for the Black experience of the pandemic of 1918, and also situating that alongside with some of the government publishing office reports we have around health and human services in states throughout the country and African American experience and interactions with healthcare providers as part of our work. So there have been a few different types of resource allocation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's see here. We have, wait, let me get back up here. I think I went a little too far. All right, so it says here, are you thinking about how some of the shifts that you've made in light of COVID will become regular ongoing aspects of your work? And can you any of you talk a little bit about that?
I could talk about that a bit. And it relates to the last question as well. So there has been an increase in the demand for digital content and digitizing of our materials because of the research needs. And fortunately, we've been able to still provide that aspect of our services. What has shifted, particularly to how we are handling collections, and although we have not had anyone in the archive and outside of staff of the archive, which is just two of us, I have updated how we handle materials of the archive. And so there's, when we do get to a point where we can welcome researchers back into the archive, there will be, again, instead of open, just kind of, to just come in, and if you need something, we can pull it right then and there. Although we've always encouraged appointments, it's just a more effective way to engage with the materials in the archive. But we are doing appointment. We'll do appointment only, and so that will last for as long as needed according to the pandemic and what restrictions or limitations will come and inform the institution's decision about public engagement with the institution. So we don't know how long that will be, but that will be something that is a change, is a shift that may be long term, indefinite. Sure. So that's one. Two, the limit on who and how many, not who, but how many people can be in the space at the same time. So that again will be something that is a shift that will be indefinite, but that limitation will be no more than 3, because that's what our space can accommodate in terms of making sure that we're integrating social distancing into the work. Also, the isolation period for the materials itself, when after people have researched and engaged with the material. And so that is something that, while indefinite, may be something that's permanent. So we will have, an isolation period of about, at least a day. And I'm still working on if we need to extend that time. But a day isolation on its own before putting it back into our retrieval system with the rest of the collection. And again, that will be informed by, again, as guidelines come out from our professional organizations about how to engage with those materials. So that's something that, those are some shifts and some changes that will be permanent. And also, just as best as we can, one thing that has happened that this has, I think, across the institution has really amplified the need for digital resources. And our hope, especially for us in the library, that, the powers that be, start to allocate more funds towards towards us in the budget. So if anybody from my institution is on, something to think about. But, just again, the need not only for, funding digitization, but funding software where we can, actually develop content, develop, videos around the collections, develop, recorded, workshops, to better engage with the collections and have our own in-house content for our students as well as the public. And then also too, the supporting materials in the secondary, in the circulating collections of the library as well. So that need has been there as well. And again, updates to our website and that sort of thing, which is all coming in fall because that's what, so we could manage in the response to COVID with a staff of 2, that's what worked for us. So those are some of the permanent or some of the shifts, indefinite and a permanent change that will happen.
Sure. Thank you, Raquel. There's a question okay, let's see. It says, it seems that there is a tremendous amount of material which is not accessible to the public. As our country comes to grip with our history and how we're going to move forward, it is so important to this material out, to get this material out, and which help shape our future. Unless collections start getting more creative, or archives, archivists, with outsourcing, this person is thinking outsourcing of the manual digitization that's needed, these stories will not get out into the world. It is efficient and cost effective, and will allow professional archivists to concentrate on other important work. It was more of a comment than a question, but if you would like to sort of address that. Raquel, you were speaking of the funding that's needed for software, and I guess in some instances, some institutions may go with outsourcing and not buy all of the equipment, depending,
I saw that comment earlier, and in many regards, I agree with it. The catch with that is COVID has changed things. So it adds an additional layer of vetting for the vendor that would potentially do the digitization. So we would now have to, even as a profession, maybe establish some standards that we would approve of for vendors if we were to outsource. Also, to be honest with you, especially when it comes to Black collection, I know for myself as an archivist and as a person of the community, there's still things to consider when we talk about having precious materials that are not accessible to the public of the Black experience. Sending it out and outsourcing it. There is organization and community members that would not be in support of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that piece that will have to be considered, as well. And then also too, the funding is always going to be an issue. It doesn't matter if you're at a large institution or a small institution or community-based organization. Funding is always going to be a problem. While there are organizations and institutions whose pockets are a bit deeper that can fund the library, their libraries and archives maybe a little bit more than other institutions. Libraries historically within organizations typically get like the smaller portion of the money when they really need more, because you're providing resources for the entire community, as well as a lot of times the community in which the institution inhabits. So I think, not to some funding organizations, how, and it's been interesting to see some funding organizations, how they're pivoting, how they're going to fund, and maybe considering, all of this, like considering all these nuances that COVID now presents, and how, institutions can meet requirements for digitization, opening up funding opportunities for digitization, and not only for digitization, but like that aspect of protecting the collection and the persons, with the funding. So I think, like, while yes, that comment, I agree in many ways, and as an archivist, yes, I want to just do the work of collecting and really amplifying the narrative, but those things, the funding is always going to be a challenge. And then now with the added layer of this virus that can live on the physical materials, we have to now incorporate that aspect of it as well, so that the materials, the most important, the people, can be protected as well.
Yeah. So important that you talked in detail with us about that. I think that's one of the things that people do not think about, the protection aspect all the way around.
Allison, if I can jump in really quickly.
Sure.
There are a number of questions about specific institutions opening up, as well as the timeline for the processing of specific collections. And so I would just state that it's probably best to reach out to some of those specific institutions regarding the processing timeline for collections. And then as far as other institutions that are open, Chicago Public Library archives are currently open by appointment, as well as the Chicago History Museum Research Center is open by appointment. As far as independent universities, I think Raquel, Charla have both spoken to this, but that's really going to depend on not only sort of Illinois restrictions, Chicago restrictions, but also how each university is handling opening up their campuses to not just students and staff, but also to the wider community. So those timelines we don't know because so much is changing. And I would encourage you all to continue to reach out to those institutions to get a sense of when they're going to be opening, because there are a lot of different kind of guidelines and policies and procedures in place.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Marcia. I did see some things pop up in chat, so thanks for addressing those. All right. Okay, so someone else is asking, and I think we talked a little bit about policies. Specifically, it's asking about accession and or processing policies, and how the virus has changed your workflow. Raquel, you talked a little bit about that. I didn't know if anyone else wanted to speak to their own experience.
Well, at the Harsh Research Collection, we have been placing more of an emphasis on processing. Like most institutions, we have a very large backlog that we're trying to use this time to address. I noticed in the chat there was a specific question about Glynette Tilly Turner, because I brought up her collection while I was speaking. Glynette Tilly Turner is an educator, a researcher, a scholar, specifically in her research in the Underground Railroad sites in Chicago. It's a gigantic collection. It's about it's over 200 linear feet. And we've been working on it the past year. One of the decisions that we've made recently is with these really large collections, we don't want to have to wait for them to be viewed by the public. So what we may start doing is when we finish processing a series and that one's ready to go, we may release it series by series rather than waiting for the entirety of the collection to be processed. That will make it available to researchers a little bit quicker than having to wait for the whole thing to be done in its entirety. As to when it'll be finished being processed and we have the finding aid online, of course, that it completely depends on what happens the next couple of weeks and how archivists have to spend our time. But those type of decisions have been made as we've been spending more time with heavier processing in our workflow.
Great, thank you for speaking to that. Let's see, there is a question about methods that are used to conduct oral histories remotely. She says, I assume you are conducting research from oral interviews from your home. What audio formats and or equipment are you using? She'd be interested in knowing.
Since we've been doing a few of those now for the last couple of months, this is Dino Robinson again at Shorefront. We are primarily using Zoom, so we can privately invite a person or participant. We record them just as this session has been recorded. Zoom then provides a video of the interview as well as the audio of the interview as well. We tend to send the audio out for transcription. or we have an intern do the transcription, and then we do a check with that afterwards. From what we found so far, the audio quality is quite fine as long as the internet connection is decent. There was a case where one interview we did, the internet connection was horrible, and it cut out after 10 minutes into the discussion. But fortunately, the plan B, she had the Zoom app on her smartphone, and that smartphone actually provided a much better reception. We were more focused on the audio more than the video. So that once she switched over to the phone, it was smooth running ever since then. We do a couple of interview discussions before the interview. So we set the parameters. We forward the core questions ahead of time for them to review and to either add to it or reject questions. We also send a release form for release, but we don't have them sign it until after the oral history is done, and we send over a transcript to them for their approval. Once they do that, they send over the signed release form, and then we make the determination to set it up on Shorefront Voice website. We intend on doing 3 of those in the coming week to upload 3 new ones. And one thing that we also do is that we always provide that extra opportunity to re-review their oral histories before we actually upload it, even though the prescription, the permission explicitly says we can upload it. We still like to give that last minute decision. And sometimes, though, I question one of them. This is an interesting story. One of the interviews we did was a current school board member, and she was very adamant about preserving the record and wanted to make this public. I question that, and I offer several opportunities to rescind that, or at least delay it until after she leaves her term on the council. And upon further reflection, she did decide that she wanted to hold it for a year. And then I wrote back and suggested, why don't we just wait till your term is up and then put it out there? So our responsibility as archivists is really to watch out also for the best interests of the archives that we're acquiring, and make sure that we are doing due diligence with that and protecting the people who are donating.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that, Dino. Marcia, I think we might be a little tight on time. I have one comment here that may wrap things up, if that's okay.
Sure.
Did you, and I've missed any in the chat. I've been trying to glance at it, but let me know. So one person is just complimenting all of you and how talented you are, and it's been wonderful to see such an assembly of talented archivists and librarians, especially in this particular moment. I value and appreciate all that you do. And I think that speaks for all of us here, all of us gathered here. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. We have recorded this session, and we will be making it available via a link through our website. And we can also send that information out to those who have registered and attended today's annual meeting. So thank you all to our wonderful, wonderful panelists for the information that you have shared. And we thank you to all of those who have attended the annual meeting. Please stay safe and well.